Something shifted this week that most people haven't fully processed yet. Iran launched a new class of weapons, and the footage coming out of the region is making it nearly impossible for anyone to maintain the usual narrative. This is not a regional skirmish anymore. This is a structural breakdown, and the consequences are going to reach far beyond the Middle East. Welcome to Daily Reports, where you get clear, reliable, and up-to-date coverage of global events. To understand what's happening right now, you need to step back and look at the architecture of the situation. For decades, American military presence in the Middle East operated on a simple premise: forward bases, strategic partnerships, and deterrence through presence. The idea was that just being there, with carriers, air assets, and regional alliances, would keep adversaries in check. Iran never fully accepted that framework. Since the Islamic Revolution of 1979, Tehran has been methodically building an asymmetric military doctrine, not designed to match American firepower head-on. That would be suicide. Instead, Iran invested in missiles, drones, proxy networks, and the patience to wait for the right moment. That moment appears to have arrived. The current conflict between the United States, Israel, and Iran represents something that analysts have been quietly warning about for years: a scenario where America's conventional military advantages are being systematically neutralized by unconventional Iranian strategy. And, as of this week, the situation has escalated into territory that is genuinely difficult to walk back from. Let's walk through what has happened, step by step. American and Israeli forces conducted strikes on Iranian territory, including reported strikes near Isfahan, a major Iranian city with significant civilian and strategic infrastructure. Iranian state sources reported at least 15 fatalities from those strikes. That was the cause. Iran did not respond in kind immediately. It waited, it calculated, and then it launched what it officially designated as the 55th wave of Operation True Promise 4, Wadi Sadiq, a structured, deliberate military campaign rather than a reactive, emotional strike. The weapons used were not improvised. Iranian military sources confirmed the deployment of Fatah hypersonic missiles, Emad ballistic missiles, Ghadr medium-range ballistic missiles, and a coordinated swarm of attack drones. Let that sink in for a moment. Hypersonic. That means these projectiles travel at speeds that make conventional missile defense systems, including the ones Israel and the US have spent billions developing, extremely difficult to engage successfully. The targets included Tel Nof Air Base, Ben Gurion International Airport, aerospace production and fueling infrastructure, and naval support operations in Bahrain, specifically the Juf Air Base and Sheikh Issa Air Base. Israel's own Channel 13 broadcast footage showing cluster warhead deployment over central Israel, a single missile fragmenting midair and spreading explosive submunitions across multiple kilometers. Documented destruction at 10 separate sites was shown on Israeli domestic television. When your own national broadcaster is showing that scale of damage, that's not propaganda from the other side, that's confirmation. Simultaneously, Iran extended its operational reach into the Gulf states. Major strikes were reported against commercial and infrastructure targets in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. At Fujairah port in the UAE, one of the world's busiest bunkering hubs, fires were recorded following a drone attack on the oil industry zone. Footage circulating on social media showed significant structural damage. This is the consequence phase, and it's still unfolding. Iran has essentially communicated a message to Gulf states that have hosted American bases and participated in regional anti-Iran architecture. Your proximity to American military presence does not protect you. It makes you a target. Now, let's step back and analyze what's actually happening beneath the surface, because the military strikes are only part of the story. Washington is currently facing what strategists call a trilemma. 3 options, none of them good. Option 1, withdrawal. America pulls back, ceases operations against Iran. This preserves American lives and ends the immediate escalation. But the cost is enormous. A withdrawal signals to every regional actor, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Jordan, that American security guarantees are conditional and reversible. Israel loses its primary external patron in an active conflict. China and Russia immediately interpret this as strategic retreat. The dollar's role as the global reserve currency, already under pressure from de-dollarization trends, takes another significant hit. Withdrawal ends the war. But it might also end American primacy in the Middle East, permanently. Option 2, escalation, boots on the ground. A full conventional military campaign against Iran is not Afghanistan. It's significantly harder. Iran has a population of approximately 90 million people. The terrain is rugged, mountainous, and strategically complex. The IRGC, Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, has spent 4 decades preparing specifically for this scenario. They have distributed military infrastructure, underground facilities, and a deeply motivated fighting force. The cost in American lives, treasure, and global reputation would be staggering. The Afghanistan campaign lasted 20 years, cost over $2 trillion and ended without a decisive American victory. Iran presents a harder operational environment by most measures. Option 3, nuclear coercion. Some voices in the hawkish wing of American policy have floated the idea of tactical nuclear deployment as a last resort. The idea being that conventional strikes aren't producing sufficient deterrence, but this option carries consequences that dwarf the others. America's NATO allies would fracture immediately. The global non-proliferation framework, already fragile, would collapse. China and Russia would have immediate justification to accelerate their own nuclear postures, and the moral authority that underpins American soft power globally would be gone permanently. There is no option 3 that doesn't create 10 new crises. This brings us to something that has received insufficient attention in mainstream coverage. President Trump issued what amounted to a public ultimatum to NATO allies, demanding that member nations contribute naval assets to ensure the Strait of Hormuz remains navigable. The response from NATO allies was essentially, no, Britain declined to send warships. Other NATO members followed suit. This is significant. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most strategically critical waterways on the planet. Approximately 20% of the world's oil passes through it. If Iran can credibly threaten that choke point, it doesn't just hurt Israel or America. It affects global energy markets, supply chains, and every economy connected to petroleum-based trade. And yet, NATO allies are declining to act. What does that tell you about the current state of the Western alliance? It tells you that after years of burden-sharing disputes, after the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan, after the turbulent relationship between Washington and its European partners, allies have made a calculation. They believe that the strategic cost of entering this conflict outweighs the benefit of maintaining unconditional solidarity with Washington. That is a seismic shift in geopolitical alignment. Meanwhile, a scheduled meeting between President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping, reportedly planned for the end of March, has been flagged as potentially delayed. Trump's framing was explicit. If China does not help stabilize the situation at Hormuz and protect those with strategic interests there, the summit may not proceed. Think about what this reveals. America is now in the position of asking China, its primary strategic competitor, for assistance in managing a conflict in the Middle East. That is not the posture of a nation operating from a position of strength. That is the posture of a nation that has exhausted its coalition-building options and is reaching across the table to an adversary for help. China has every incentive to let this situation continue without intervening. A prolonged American entanglement in the Middle East diverts American strategic attention and resources away from the Indo-Pacific, which is where China's core interests lie. Perhaps the most strategically important development this week came not from a battlefield, but from a press statement. General Ali Mohammed, spokesperson for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, made a calculated disclosure. The missiles Iran has been using in recent strikes were developed approximately 10 years ago. Read that carefully. Iran is not using its newest weapons. What you're seeing in the footage, the destruction at multiple sites, the hypersonic delivery systems, the cluster warheads. That is a decade-old Iranian arsenal. The message to Washington, to Tel Aviv, and to every NATO capital is unmistakable. You haven't seen what we've built recently. This is classic deterrence signaling. Iran is not revealing its full capability. It's revealing enough to force a recalculation. Let's talk about what this actually means for real people. Because behind every geopolitical analysis are human consequences that don't make it into the strategic briefings. For Canadians watching this situation unfold, the Strait of Hormuz isn't just a distant geography lesson. If Iranian operations significantly disrupt traffic through that choke point, global oil prices spike. Canada's energy sector, already navigating complex relationships with American trade policy, faces a volatile external environment. Consumer prices for fuel, transportation, and goods affected by supply chain costs all feel the downstream pressure. The Canadian economy is deeply integrated into global trade systems, and global trade systems run on energy. What happens in the Persian Gulf doesn't stay in the Persian Gulf. 15 people confirmed killed in Isfahan, residential areas near missile impact sites across Israel, fires burning at a major port in the UAE. These are not abstract statistics. These are human beings, families, communities, caught inside a conflict driven by calculations made in capitals thousands of kilometers away. The pattern of this conflict, like so many before it, is that the people who make the decisions are rarely the ones who absorb the consequences. The strategic logic plays out in briefing rooms. The human cost plays out in neighborhoods. Israel finds itself in a genuinely precarious situation. It is fighting on multiple fronts, managing Iranian missile campaigns, Hezbollah pressure from the north, and the complex politics of maintaining American support. While that support becomes increasingly contested domestically within the United States, the Israeli public is now watching their own national broadcasters document destruction in real time. The psychological pressure of sustained missile attacks, even when defense systems intercept the majority, is a strategic instrument in itself. Iran understands this. The targeting of Ben Gurion Airport, the symbolic center of Israeli civilian life and international connectivity, is designed to communicate reach and consequence. Here is where things stand as of this week. Iran is escalating, not retreating. Its military is deploying advanced long-range systems and signaling that it has held its most capable weapons in reserve. It is extending its strikes beyond Israel into Gulf states, reframing the entire regional dynamic. America is facing a coalition problem. Its NATO allies are declining to contribute. Its relationship with China is being used as leverage. Its three available options all carry enormous costs. The Gulf states are watching carefully and recalibrating. The presence of American bases, for decades seen as a security guarantee, is now being processed as a potential liability. And the Strait of Hormuz, the artery through which a significant portion of the world's oil flows, sits at the center of a standoff with no clear resolution. What we are witnessing is not just a military conflict, it is a realignment. The architecture of Middle Eastern power that was built over the last several decades is under structural pressure from multiple directions simultaneously. The question is not whether it changes, the question is what replaces it, and who shapes that replacement. This is the story that will define the next decade of global geopolitics. And it is unfolding right now. Here are two questions worth thinking about, and we genuinely want to hear your perspective. Question 1. If America's three options in this conflict all carry major costs, withdrawal, escalation, or nuclear coercion, what do you think Washington's realistic next move is? Is there a fourth option nobody is discussing? Question 2. The Gulf states are now watching American military guarantees be tested in real time. Do you think countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE will begin quietly distancing themselves from the American security umbrella? And if so, what does that mean for the region? Drop your thoughts below. This is exactly the kind of conversation that matters. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to smash the bell icon so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Take good care of yourselves, and thank you for watching.